Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfic guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What Deku Raised Eri and Kota. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. If someone had told Izuku Midoriya that he would make it to UA high school, he would have been overjoyed. The idea of having 2 children would have left him speechless, and the thought of having girlfriends who wanted to be the mothers of his kids would have made him faint. His mother, Inko, would have been both happy and shocked to learn that her son had girlfriends. This unexpected turn of events began before the dorms were established. Midoriya had adopted Kota after the boy expressed a longing to stay with him, which brought tears to Mandalay's eyes. She had insisted on being allowed to visit her nephew, a request Midoriya would never deny. He later adopted Eri after she managed to escape from Overhaul, the villain who had tormented her. Eri chose to stay with Midoriya because he was the only adult she trusted. Initially, Aizawa had been unsupportive of Midoriya's decision to adopt the children, citing his age as a primary concern. However, when he learned about Eri's mental state, including her frequent panic attacks and severe separation anxiety due to the abuse she had suffered, he reconsidered. Since Midoriya was the only person Eri felt safe with, Aizawa ultimately agreed to the arrangement. Nizu, the principal, had also been supportive, leaving Aizawa with little choice but to comply. Aizawa did insist that a teacher supervise the children during school days. One morning, Midoriya woke up in his newly expanded room, which now included a bunk bed for Eri and Kota. They were still asleep, and since it was not a school day, he contemplated sleeping in. However, his training habits urged him to get up. He knew that leaving the room could cause Eri to panic, as she was still recovering from her trauma. Kota was improving after his encounter with Muscular, while Eri was gradually overcoming her fears, though she remained easily startled. Recently, Midoriya had noticed that the girls in his class, as well as those in Class 1B, were becoming friendlier toward him. While he appreciated their kindness, he found it a bit strange as he had not interacted much with many of them before. Initially, their increased socialization was manageable, but now they seemed to be getting too comfortable around him. Midoriya had little experience with girls, aside from Uraraka and Tsuyu, and even they were starting to act differently. Despite his attempts to return to sleep, Midoriya's longing to work out kept him awake. Suddenly he heard Eri scream, prompting him to rush to the bunk beds. He found her sitting up, clutching her Deku plushie, tears streaming down her face. Eri had experienced a nightmare in which the bad man had returned to take her away. There were 3 different bad men Eri could have been referring to. The first was Overhaul, her abusive father, who had exploited her quirk for his own gain. The second was Aizawa, who had initially disapproved of Midoriya's decision to care for the children and had tried to force Eri back into Mandalay's custody, causing her distress. The third was Bakugo, whose loud demeanor frightened Eri, making her wary of him. Midoriya suspected that Eri's nightmare was about Overhaul, a trauma that might never fully fade. He hugged her tightly, offering comfort and reassurance. He promised her that Overhaul could no longer hurt her, reminding her that they were safe at UA and that he would protect her at all costs. Eri managed a small smile and affectionately called him Daddy. Midoriya then offered to make breakfast for the children, to which they eagerly agreed. As he prepared to leave the room, Eri grabbed his leg, looking up at him with concern. He reassured her once more that he would return, solidifying the bond they shared. Kota agreed to take care of Eri while Izuku went to get breakfast. He pulled Eri into a hug, allowing her to let go of Izuku. As Izuku made his way downstairs, he noticed Mina waiting for him. She greeted him warmly and encouraged him to call her by her first name. When she asked if he was going somewhere, he explained that he was heading to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for Izumi and Eri. Mina offered to help, but Izuku politely declined, assuring her he could manage. Once in the kitchen, Izuku encountered Momo, who greeted him with a smile. He felt a bit shy as he asked what she was doing. Momo, who preferred to be called by her first name, expressed her interest in visiting Eri and Kota to see how they were doing. Izuku agreed, and together they prepared bacon and eggs, while Momo made some orange juice. They ascended to the room where Eri and Kota were watching cartoons. After enjoying their breakfast and discussing their morning, Momo prepared to leave to meet with the other girls. As she was about to go, Eri bid her goodbye, calling her mommy. Momo felt overwhelmed by the sweetness of the moment, realizing that being called mom by Eri was a significant honor. This experience made her reflect on how much she and the other girls admired Izuku. They were drawn to his shy yet determined nature, which was both adorable and inspirational. They idolized him for his relentless pursuit of excellence and his kindness towards others, striving to emulate his plus ultra spirit. Another reason for their affection was Izuku's modesty despite his impressive physique. Unlike many others who might flaunt such a body with arrogance, he remained humble and shy, making him a rare find. They had stumbled upon this aspect of him accidentally when one of the girls had walked into his room and taken a picture, which had sparked a flurry of admiration among them. Most importantly, Izuku's nurturing side as a father to Eri and Kota solidified their feelings for him. Witnessing him care for them made it clear that he would be an ideal partner. Momo recalled moments when she imagined herself snuggling with them on the couch, sharing in their warmth and happiness. The realization of their collective feelings for Izuku had come about gradually, with Mina suggesting the idea of sharing him. While some girls hesitated, believing he was too gentlemanly for a harem, others argued that he would never want to hurt anyone by choosing. This led to a consensus that they needed to confess their feelings, but they were unsure of how to do so without overwhelming him. As Momo pondered their plan, her phone rang, and she entered the chat room with the other girls. They discussed their strategy for confessing their feelings, weighing the pros and cons of being straightforward versus dropping hints. Ultimately, they decided that being upfront was the best approach, despite the potential for Izuku to be flustered. Meanwhile, Izuku made his way to the courtyard, having asked Ida to look after Eri and Kota. When he arrived, he found the girls waiting for him. As he greeted them, his trademark smile lit up the space, causing the girls to blush. Achiko took the lead, indicating that they had something important to discuss. Mina then expressed that they had developed feelings for him, leaving Izuku momentarily stunned and apologetic, fearing he had done something wrong. Momo reassured him that it was nothing of the sort, and Tsuyu boldly stated that they all liked him and wanted to date him. Ribbit. A moment of silence hung in the air until Tsuyu broke it, stating that there was no need for hesitation. Izuku stood there, stunned, as he processed the unexpected revelation that his classmates liked him. Mei quickly clarified that while they appreciated Bakugo, they also liked him. Izuku felt overwhelmed, questioning how they could feel that way about him. Kyoka reassured him that he was one of the few decent guys around, while Tsuyu added that Ito was not interested in dating, and Bakugo was a different story altogether. Ochako pointed out that he respected them and was not a pervert, which was refreshing. Mei noted that he always brightened their days, and Mina mentioned how he inspired them to be better. Momo praised his kindness and ability to connect with children, while Toro highlighted his selflessness and innocence. Izuku stood in shock, grappling with the weight of their words. He expressed his concern about choosing between them, fearing he would hurt someone's feelings. Mina proposed a solution: they all wanted to share him. This revelation left Izuku speechless. Tsuyu encouraged him to simply agree, and after a moment of hesitation, he exclaimed his acceptance. Just then, they were interrupted by the arrival of the 1B girls, who were clearly displeased. Itsuka reminded them that they had agreed to approach this together. Mina pointed out that it was not their fault the others were late and that they wanted to ease Izuku into the situation since he was still recovering from their confession. Ibra confessed that they all liked him and were willing to explore this unconventional relationship if he was open to it. Overwhelmed, Izuku accepted, only to faint from the intensity of the moment. Once he regained consciousness, he found himself in his room. Ida inquired about what had happened, and Momo explained that Izuku had pushed himself too hard during their workout. Ida expressed concern for Izuku's well-being, noting that while he embodied the spirit of Plus Ultra, he needed to take a break. Eri, worried about her father, asked if he was hurt, but Momo reassured her that he was just asleep. They carefully placed Izuku on the bed, and Momo requested that Ida take the others outside for some fresh air so Izuku could rest. Though reluctant, Eri eventually left with Ida and Kota. Once they were alone, Ochako wondered how they could make their relationship work without causing Izuku to blush excessively. Momo suggested taking things slow at first, with one date at a time for each girl, allowing him to get comfortable before increasing the pace. Itsuka agreed that this plan sounded reasonable. As time passed, Izuku slowly stirred awake, struggling to believe that everything that had happened was real. He had always thought of himself as unlikable, destined to be alone. Just then, Mei asked who she needed to confront for making him feel that way. Realizing he had spoken aloud, he panicked, but Tsuyu confirmed that he had indeed expressed his thoughts. Momo reassured him that their feelings were genuine and that they had all agreed to this arrangement. Ibra acknowledged the unconventional nature of their relationship but affirmed their commitment to giving it a try. One by one, the girls affectionately kissed him on the cheek, causing him to blush. He had never expected his life to take such a turn, but he decided that this was not the worst thing that could happen to him. It was certainly one of the most unexpected. As the story continued, Izuku embarked on a series of dates with his new girlfriends. His first date with Ochako took them to a mochi buffet, where they enjoyed their meal while keeping an eye on how much they consumed. Afterward, they headed to the movie theater, where Izuku planned a surprise for her. He approached the ticket attendant, asking for discretion about the movie title. The attendant agreed to help him keep the surprise. When they entered the theater, Izuku covered Ochako's eyes until they reached their seats. Once he revealed the movie, which turned out to be a 13 film, Ochako showered him with kisses, drawing the attention and admiration of other couples around them. Izuku's second date with Tsuyu was at an aquarium, where she delighted in observing various fish. Her enjoyment earned him a big kiss of appreciation. For his date with Mina, they visited an ice cream parlor before heading to a dance arena, where they competed against others. Mina excelled, making it to the final 5 and winning first place, which earned Izuku a kiss on the cheek. On his date with Toru, they took a peaceful walk in the park, enjoying the fresh air and quiet moments together. Their time ended with a sweet kiss. Momo planned a dinner date, where she helped Izuku dress better than he usually did, leading to another affectionate kiss. Finally, during his date with Kyoka, they played instruments together in her room, sharing a cozy moment while listening to music. As Izuku navigated these new relationships, he found himself growing more comfortable and confident, embracing the unexpected joy that had entered his life. A quick peck on the cheek was enough for them. On their 7th date, Izuku and Itsuka visited a cafe, then attended a motorcycle exhibit, and concluded their day with a jog. A kiss marked the end of their outing. For their 8th date, Izuku took Setsuna to a dinosaur museum where she marveled at the bones, fossils, and models. The museum featured a theater that discussed dinosaurs, and Setsuna enjoyed every moment. She kissed him, and the intensity of the moment almost led to more, but she remembered that he might not be ready for that. On their 9th date, Yui and Izuku shared a simple lunch conversation, discussing their likes, dislikes, and hobbies. They made decent progress in getting to know each other and ended with a hug, as Yui felt she wasn't ready for a kiss yet. For their 10th date, Ibra and Izuku opted for a walk in the park, where they sat on the swings. They later visited a botanical garden, holding hands as they explored the beauty around them. A quick kiss was shared during their time together. On their 11th date, Reiko and Izuku watched scary movies. They discovered that Izuku struggled with horror films, but he tried to brave through it. Reiko comforted him by holding him close, and they shared another kiss. During their 12th date, Izuku and Kaneko played video games and enjoyed each other's company, sharing laughter over her jokes. She kissed him, adding to the warmth of their day. On their 13th date, Izuku helped Pony with her Japanese while she assisted him with English. They discussed their favorite heroes, with Pony expressing her admiration for the US superhero Spider-Man and Izuku sharing his thoughts on All Might. They exchanged kisses on the cheek, solidifying their bond. For their 14th date, Izuku and Mei attended a robotics show. Mei was thrilled to see all the robots in action and enjoyed a presentation on how they were made. She gave him a passionate kiss, leaving Izuku feeling grateful for each of his dates with his girlfriends. As the night settled at the dorms, the boys decided to have a boys' night out. Bakugo agreed to join, claiming he needed fresh air before he exploded on someone, though everyone suspected there was more to it. Izuku, feeling under the weather, chose to stay behind. When the boys left, the girls visited his room, surprising him with the presence of Melissa and Nijire. He knew Melissa was part of a foreign exchange program, but he wondered what brought them both there. Setsuna greeted him, mentioning that she and the others had heard he wasn't feeling well and that Ibara had made him some soup. Ochako added that Melissa and Nijire wanted to join in on the relationship. Izuku was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. Momo explained that they had not set a limit on their relationships and believed they could trust Melissa and Nijire, leaving the decision up to him. After confirming that everyone was okay with the arrangement, he accepted, and the girls hugged him. He felt better after enjoying Ibara's soup and made a mental note to arrange dates with Melissa and Nijire. Melissa suggested they play a game, and they all moved downstairs. Izuku dressed quickly and joined them. Itsuka noticed the absence of Eri and Kota, to which Izuku explained they were spending time with his mother, who wanted to bond with them. Meanwhile, Inko was sharing a moment with Eri and Kota, showing them a picture of Izuku in his All Might onesie. They reminisced about how much he had loved the hero since childhood. Eri found it adorable, while Kota acknowledged Izuku's long-standing admiration. Back at UA, Ochako asked Izuku if his mother knew about their relationships. He admitted he didn't know how to tell her, fearing she might faint. Momo reassured him that they would figure it out when the time came. The game they played had elements of Never Have I Ever, allowing players to choose not to answer questions they were uncomfortable with. However, it included buzzers for when someone lied, leading to a dare as a consequence. Setsuna posed the first question about feeling insecure about their bodies. Everyone was surprised when Izuku took a sip of water, but they chose not to question it. The buzzer sounded, and Momo revealed that she had noticed Kyoka often comparing her cup size to others with a sad expression. Kyoka admitted her insecurities, prompting supportive reactions from her friends, who reassured her of her beauty inside and out. As the game continued, they explored various topics, including broken bones and experiences of bullying. Izuku, along with several others, took sips of water when the questions resonated with their pasts. The atmosphere was filled with camaraderie and understanding as they shared their experiences and supported one another. The game progressed with revelations about past relationships, leading to laughter and shared memories, strengthening the bonds between them all. Izuku took a sip of his drink, and the conversation took an unexpected turn. His classmates were shocked to learn that he had been kissed before attending UA. Although he explained that it had been a prank by a popular girl who claimed to like him, the revelations sparked a wave of reactions. His friends couldn't believe that someone would treat Izuku that way, and their concern quickly turned to anger. Izuku recounted how he had been excited at the prospect of having a girlfriend, only to be met with laughter from her and her friends when they revealed the prank. They had even thrown small rocks at him, which, while not large, still hurt. As his friends listened, they felt a mix of sympathy and outrage. The thought that Izuku might have doubted their own feelings when they confessed to him weighed heavily on their hearts. They understood how such an experience could make someone skeptical about genuine emotions. Despite the pain from that past incident, Izuku had moved on. He expressed that he did not consider that moment his first kiss. Instead, he believed that a true first kiss should be filled with meaning, passion, and romance. In his eyes, his real first kiss was shared with all of them, his girlfriends, during a tender moment when they all embraced him. They had decided to stop their icebreaker game and simply cuddle together on Momo's bed, marking a significant and comforting night for Izuku. As the story progressed, it became clear to the girls that Izuku was struggling with deeper issues. They had noticed signs that indicated he was not okay, including his tendency to flinch at sudden movements and his difficulty in accepting compliments. During a tutoring session, when praised for his efforts, he attempted to deflect the compliments, believing others deserved the recognition more than he did. This behavior raised concerns among his friends, who realized that Izuku did not see himself as worthy of praise. Additionally, they observed that he seemed to expect aggression from others when they were angry, which was alarming. During a game night, when Bakugo had a particularly intense outburst, Izuku instinctively tried to hide, a reaction that made his friends uneasy. They also noted his discomfort with loud noises, especially when Bakugo was involved, as he would cover his ears and appear distressed. The final sign that troubled them was Izuku's aversion to bullies, coupled with his inability to fight back. One day, while the girls were chatting about their dates, a general education student approached Izuku with disdain. The boy mocked him, questioning his place in the hero course. Izuku, always polite, tried to defend himself, but the encounter left him visibly shaken. The girls felt a surge of protectiveness for him, realizing just how much he had endured. As they reflected on these signs, the girls made a silent vow to support Izuku and help him heal from the wounds of his past. They understood that their love and friendship could be a source of strength for him, and they were determined to show him that he was deserving of all the good things life had to offer. All the hard work that was being discussed seemed non-existent to one particular student. He was only there because of his extraordinary quirk. If he had been like the others, he would never have been accepted. The rumors circulated that he was weak, even a crybaby, and it was suggested that he missed his mother. The atmosphere was tense, and it was clear that bullying was taking place, especially when the subject of the entrance exam was brought up. One boy taunted him, claiming that because he had been attacked by villains twice, they were forced to live in subpar dorms. He expressed his frustration about only being able to see his parents once a week, blaming the other student for his predicament. The bullied student felt compelled to defend himself, insisting that he had not asked to be attacked and that it was not something he wanted. The boy continued to provoke him, suggesting that he might even be the one informing the villains of their whereabouts. The bullied student vehemently denied this accusation, activating his quirk in response, which caused the bully to momentarily retreat. The bully, however, remained unrepentant and coldly suggested that the other student should harm himself so that someone more deserving could take his place in the hero course. The cruelty of the statement was shocking, and those witnessing it were ready to intervene when another student stepped in, requesting the bully to leave. After the bully was sent away, the intervening student checked on the bullied one, acknowledging the obnoxious behavior he had just witnessed. He expressed surprise at the bullied student's lack of response, questioning why he hadn't defended himself. The bullied student explained that he was used to such treatment and preferred to take the abuse himself rather than let it affect anyone else. He believed that choosing not to retaliate made him a better person. The girls who had been observing were bewildered by his reasoning. They found it hard to understand how he could be accustomed to such behavior and felt that his logic was flawed. They believed that no one would blame him for standing up for himself. After the incident, the girls comforted him with hugs and took him out for dinner, ensuring he felt supported. However, they noticed signs that indicated he was self-conscious about his body. It was concerning for someone with such a strong physique to feel this way. One day in the locker room, while changing, a girl overheard the boys discussing their muscles, and they mentioned the bullied student's impressive physique. Despite their compliments, he dismissed them, believing others were better than him. The girl felt frustrated that he could not accept a compliment and worried about his self-esteem. The girls decided it was time to address their concerns. They called him into an empty classroom for a private discussion. They expressed their worries about his alarming feelings and habits, asking if he was experiencing depression. He hesitated and denied it, but they pressed on, wanting to understand why he had been bullied in the past. He reluctantly shared that he had been a late bloomer, needing to train his body to use his quirks safely. During his early years, he had been bullied for being perceived as quirkless, as those without quirks were often treated as less than human. He revealed that the teachers had not intervened. Instead, they had encouraged the bullying and dismissed his complaints, ensuring that no incidents were recorded. Hearing this broke their hearts, and they enveloped him in a comforting embrace. The bullied student recalled a conversation he had with his mentor, where he had expressed concerns about his relationships. His mentor had encouraged him to share his burdens with those close to him, suggesting that it might help him cope better. Taking a deep breath, the bullied student prepared to share his secret with the girls, knowing it was a pivotal moment. With determination, he resolved to open up about his struggles, understanding that it was now or never. Izuku prepared himself to share a significant truth about his quirk. His friends looked at him with a mix of wonder, excitement, and confusion, as if the knowledge he was about to reveal could change everything. He insisted that they promise not to tell anyone, and they all nodded in agreement. He then recounted his journey of being quirkless, the bullying he endured, his attempts to protect Bakugo from the fallout, his encounter with All Might, and the painful moment when All Might told him he couldn't be a hero. He shared how he ultimately saved Bakugo and how All Might chose him to inherit One for All. His friends were taken aback, yet impressed by his story. Izuku expressed his concern that they might not like him anymore and suggested that if they wanted to break up, he would understand. Kyoka was quick to reassure him, questioning why he would think they hated him for this revelation. His silence spoke volumes and it broke their hearts. They surrounded him in a comforting hug, expressing their support. Itsuka remarked that this revelation only made him more admirable, while Nijire marveled at the honor of being chosen by All Might, curious about his training and the challenges he faced. Tsuyu playfully slapped Nijire, reminding her of the importance of punctuation in their discussions. Pony chimed in, acknowledging the significance of being trained by the symbol of peace. The group shared a moment of camaraderie, though they noted the need to monitor Pony's interactions with Monoma. Achiko then inquired about who else knew about Izuku's quirk, and he listed a few names, including Nizu and Recovery Girl, as well as Bakugo. Achiko feigned hurt at the thought that Izuku had confided in Bakugo before telling his girlfriends, prompting laughter from the group. Mina teased him for being too easy to read, while Momo raised a critical question about Bakugo's actions during their childhood. Izuku felt a wave of panic wash over him, knowing this topic would arise. He struggled to find a way to protect Bakugo from the scrutiny of his friends. He finally admitted that Bakugo had been the biggest bully, driven by the belief that he had to be the best hero. Bakugo's confidence had grown after gaining his quirk, and he viewed Izuku as a threat to his ambitions. Izuku recounted a particularly painful incident when Bakugo had burned one of his analysis books and cruelly suggested that he should jump off a building if he wanted a quirk in his next life. As Izuku finished his story, he noticed the mix of rage and hurt on their faces, realizing how much he had revealed. Mina clarified their stance, expressing disbelief that Bakugo had bullied him and still managed to get into UA. Izuku confirmed this, but Momo stood up, determined to take action. She insisted they inform Aizawa-sensei about Bakugo's behavior, believing he needed to be expelled. Izuku protested, but Ibra pointed out that it was concerning he would defend Bakugo. Itsuka echoed this sentiment, stating that he shouldn't be a hero if he couldn't even be a decent person. Izuku argued that Bakugo had changed and deserved another chance, but Kyoka reminded him of the past, questioning why he would defend someone who had caused him so much pain. Tsuyu added that true friends wouldn't behave that way, and the group largely agreed that Bakugo should not remain at UA. Izuku pleaded with them to give Bakugo a chance and asked them not to tell Aizawa-sensei. The group exchanged glances, knowing they were unlikely to change Izuku's mind. They understood that Bakugo had been a constant presence in his life, and they were determined to help Izuku see the truth. Momo finally relented, agreeing to give Bakugo one more chance, but warned that if he messed up, they would go straight to Aizawa-sensei. As they acknowledged the late hour, Izuku suggested they get dinner and head to bed. His friends looked at him, surprised that he thought he would be alone that night. Momo insisted that he would not be sleeping alone, and they all agreed to stay together. Unbeknownst to them, two figures had overheard their entire conversation, one hidden behind a podium and the other slipping away as they approached. The next morning, Bakugo woke up to find dead mice in his bed along with a threatening note reminding him to either stay away from Izuku or be kind to him, or else they would take further action. Bakugo was bewildered and frustrated by the events of the morning. He had received a threatening note and discovered the dead mice, and he had a strong suspicion about who was behind it. He was also met with hostile glares from the girls in his class, including Achiko and Mina, as well as students from Class 1B. The atmosphere was tense, and Bakugo couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. His questions were soon answered when he was summoned to ground testing beta, where he found the girls from both classes, including Mei, Melissa, and Nijire, all glaring at him. Momo confronted him directly, demanding that he stay away from Izuku. Bakugo was taken aback by her use of Izuku's first name, and before he could respond, Itsuka used her quirk to slam him against the side of the building, making it clear that they were serious about their warning. It was a tense moment as Itsuka confronted Bakugo about his relentless bullying of Izuku. She questioned how he could possibly think of being a hero after treating someone so poorly, even going so far as to encourage him to harm himself. Bakugo, in his usual brash manner, dismissed the concern, referring to Izuku as worthless. However, the atmosphere shifted when Momo revealed metal baseball bats she had crafted, handing one to each of her friends. Kyoka challenged Bakugo to reconsider his actions, and it was clear that he flinched at the sight of the bats. The girls recognized that they had struck a nerve. Nijire reminded Bakugo that if it were up to them, he would have faced severe consequences, but Izuku had pleaded for mercy on his behalf. They warned him to either change his ways or keep his distance. Mei added a chilling note, suggesting that if he chose not to heed their warning, he might not be found at all. Achiko echoed this sentiment, emphasizing the severity of their message. Bakugo's reaction confirmed that he understood the weight of their words, leaving him stunned as they walked away. Ibara hesitated, questioning whether they were truly serious about their threats. Achiko reassured her that while they meant no real harm, the intimidation might be enough to deter Bakugo. Setsuna pointed out that he would likely realize it was a bluff, and Tsuyu remarked on the need to wash her mouth out for complimenting him. Momo proposed a plan. If Bakugo continued his aggressive behavior, they would confront him and then report him to Aizawa. Their priority was to support Izuku, who needed to recognize that Bakugo was not his friend, despite his misguided admiration for him. Achiko elaborated on Izuku's feelings, recalling how he had idolized Bakugo during their first battle trial, expressing admiration for his quirk and determination. This revelation shocked the group, as they understood the depth of Izuku's attachment to Bakugo, which was unhealthy and needed to be addressed. As they made their way back to, they were intercepted by Midnight, who informed them that Izuku was with her. She requested their presence, assuring them that they were not in trouble. Curiosity piqued, they followed her to an empty classroom where All Might and Aizawa awaited them. Aizawa instructed them to take a seat, and Izuku, confused, asked what was happening. All Might addressed Izuku, questioning whether he had thoroughly checked the classroom before bringing his friends in. Izuku insisted that it had been empty, unaware that Aizawa had been resting behind the desk. The revelation that Aizawa was aware of One for All and their relationship sent a chill through the group. Midnight admitted that she had overheard their conversation, expressing regret for invading their privacy. Aizawa, however, was more concerned about why Izuku had not disclosed the existence of One for All to him. Izuku explained that it was a secret not meant to be shared lightly, but he had chosen to tell his friends to protect their bond. Aizawa pressed for an explanation, and All Might intervened, clarifying that he had advised against revealing the secret to avoid biasing Aizawa's judgment. Aizawa was taken aback, realizing that he might have reacted harshly had he known. All Might explained that he feared Aizawa would see Izuku as a liability due to his quirkless status, which could have dire consequences for Izuku's future. Aizawa reflected on the implications of All Might's words, acknowledging that he would have held high expectations for a quirkless student. He insisted that he should have been allowed to make his own decisions regarding Izuku's fate. All Might defended his actions, stating that he couldn't risk Aizawa's potential reaction to the truth about Izuku's treatment by others. Aizawa decided to conduct a formal investigation into Izuku's previous schools, determined to prevent any further mistreatment. He then posed a difficult question about Bakugo's future at UA. Izuku, understanding the gravity of the situation, argued that Bakugo had been conditioned to believe his actions were acceptable due to his upbringing. The group was taken aback by Izuku's candidness. Aizawa acknowledged that while Bakugo's background did not excuse his behavior, it was a factor to consider. He made it clear that Bakugo would not escape consequences easily. After dismissing the students, Aizawa, All Might, and Midnight remained behind to discuss the situation further. Aizawa inquired about when All Might had given Izuku One for All, and All Might admitted it had been on the day of the entrance exam. Aizawa was incredulous, questioning the decision. All Might explained that they were pressed for time and needed to ensure Izuku could handle the quirk without injury. Aizawa expressed concern that Izuku had not been adequately prepared. All Might defended his actions, stating that he had intended to teach Izuku control but had run out of time. Aizawa pressed for a list of those who were aware of One for All, and All Might provided the names, including Nizu and Recovery Girl, but confirmed that Izuku's mother was not informed, fearing it would be too much for her to handle. The situation at UA had become increasingly complicated. Izuku had initially faced challenges in convincing his mother to allow him to stay in the dorms. She had even contemplated withdrawing him from UA for his safety, which led to an unspoken agreement among his friends to keep certain matters private. Aizawa, the homeroom teacher, recognized that this needed to change and planned to discuss it with Midoriya. Toshinori, also known as All Might, understood the difficulty of this task. Midoriya cared deeply for his friends, and despite acknowledging that ignorance could protect relationships, his instinct was to shield them from potential pain. As time passed, it became evident to the girls that Izuku was touch-starved. They decided to address this by offering him more physical affection, holding his hands, lingering hugs, and frequent snuggles, all of which he welcomed. Meanwhile, Bakugo was attending mandatory anger management sessions, and Izuku had been seeing Hound Dog for counseling, which had helped him regain some confidence, although he remained the shy Izuku they all cherished. One evening, during a boys' night out, Izuku found himself snuggling under a blanket with Eri and Kota while watching a movie. His counseling session had run longer than expected, but it provided a perfect excuse for the group to cuddle together. Each of them expressed their affection for him with quick kisses. The next morning, everyone gathered in the common room at UA. Izuku, Kota, and Eri were still under the blanket, while the girls exchanged glances at Izuku, marveling at how they had managed to keep their secret for so long. Only Ida was aware of their relationship, having caught them in a moment of intimacy and agreeing to keep it quiet after a lengthy lecture. Bakugo might have suspected something, but he likely wouldn't bother to address it. Aizawa, All Might, and Midnight were also in the loop regarding their relationship. Aizawa entered the room, instructing everyone to head to ground training beta. Eri, upon seeing him, instinctively ducked under the blanket and snuggled closer to Izuku, which pained Aizawa more than he let on. Once everyone arrived at ground training beta, they found Class 1B already waiting. Toshinori greeted them and explained that Nizu had devised a boys versus girls exercise. He warned that if anyone had concerns, they should take it up with Nizu, who would likely dismiss them with laughter. With that, he initiated the exercise. As the students prepared, the girls noticed Izuku's nervousness. He internally questioned whether he could actually fight against them but resolved not to let his fears overwhelm him. Toshinori announced that the villains had taken a hostage, and he revealed that Midoriya would be the designated hostage. This news eased Izuku's anxiety, at least for the moment, as he wouldn't have to fight. Right away, the girls felt a mix of unease and determination. They were aware that Bakugo might try to antagonize Izuku, and they hoped he would refrain from doing so for the sake of his well-being. The villains took their hostage into a building while the heroes waited outside. Eri and Kota were under Nijire's watchful eye, as Eri still felt uneasy around Aizawa. The girls discussed their concerns about Bakugo potentially targeting Izuku or even Achiko. They all knew that Bakugo had a history of acting on personal grudges, and they worried about the implications of their relationships being discovered. Despite their fears, they focused on the task at hand, rescuing Izuku. As the exercise commenced, Toshinori observed the unfolding events. Aizawa questioned whether selecting Midoriya as the hostage had been a random choice. Toshinori admitted that it had been intentional, believing that the students cared too much for one another to engage in a serious fight. He also wanted to see if their personal feelings would interfere with their mission to rescue the hostage. Aizawa acknowledged the flawed logic in Toshinori's reasoning but agreed to monitor the situation. They both understood the importance of addressing any potential issues that could arise from the exercise. As the hero team moved into the building, their goal was clear: save Midoriya and ensure that their bonds remained intact. Kyoka had been spending a lot of time with Mina lately. The group split into teams of 2 for their training exercises. Achiko teamed up with Mina, Tsuyu paired with Ibara, Pony joined Setsuna, Reiko worked with Toru, Kaneko partnered with Yui, and Kyoka found herself with Kendo. As Kyoka, Kendo, and she moved carefully through the training area, they tried to remain as quiet as possible. Meanwhile, Achiko and Mina faced Kaminari and Mineta. It was an easy victory for them. They quickly dispatched Mineta and used acid to stun Kaminari, finishing with a swift punch. Tsuyu and Ibra took on Kota and Sato. After a tough struggle, they managed to knock Kota unconscious, but Sato eventually fell as well, leaving Tsuyu and Ibra exhausted. The teams finally made their way into the main room where Izuku was being held. Using stealth, Toru and Reiko sneaked around while the others engaged in combat. With the boys distracted, Toru and Reiko successfully rescued Izuku and slipped him out of the building. Tashinori announced that the hero team had won, leaving the boys shocked. They wondered how Izuku had been freed and soon realized that Toru and Reiko had managed to sneak through unnoticed. Tashinori observed that the students had passed the test. Despite their lingering feelings toward Bakugo, they had set those aside to save the hostage. Aizawa acknowledged their ability to put aside their differences, while Tashinori encouraged him to give the students some credit for their quick learning. As Aizawa left, Eri hid behind Nijire, recalling a time when she had been frightened of him. In a flashback, Izuku, Tashinori, and Aizawa sat in Niza's office with Kota and Eri. Aizawa was dismissive of Izuku's concerns about Eri's safety. Izuku insisted that Eri felt safer with him, but Aizawa remained firm that he would take custody of her, arguing that it was non-negotiable. Tashinori interjected, reminding Aizawa of Eri's fragile mental state and the importance of her trust. Aizawa, however, was adamant, insisting that it was irrational to let Izuku care for children. He grabbed Eri's arm tightly, causing her to break down in tears, pleading to stay with Izuku. Nizu intervened, asserting that he had seen Eri's evaluation and believed it was best for her to remain with Izuku. Aizawa protested, but Nizu stood firm, stating that his decision was final. Aizawa reluctantly agreed, and Nizu instructed him to help Izuku prepare for the transition. Back in the present, Tashinori noted that Aizawa had dropped the subject since then, though it was clear he still disapproved. Despite this, he hadn't attempted to take Eri away, knowing she wouldn't allow it. Tashinori felt it was time to have a conversation with them. After the fight, Izuku found himself standing up to Bakugo. Bakugo was furious, ready to confront Achiko for her role in the match. He had been so focused on breaking her that he hadn't noticed the quiet duo's strategy. In his anger, he shouted at Achiko, accusing her of cheating. Achiko defended their actions, explaining that they had a plan and executed it well. In a moment of frustration, she slapped Bakugo, which only fueled his rage. Just as he was about to retaliate, Izuku intervened with a powerful punch that sent Bakugo flying back. For a brief moment, silence enveloped the group as they processed Izuku's unexpected action. Izuku was internally shocked, realizing he had just punched Bakugo. Bakugo, bewildered, questioned what had just happened. Izuku stood his ground, asserting that he was no longer afraid of Bakugo. As the confrontation ended, Bakugo sat in disbelief, trying to make sense of the situation. Kirishima noted that Bakugo might have just lost a friend. The girls, witnessing the scene, felt a mix of shock, surprise, and pride. They were astonished by Izuku's sudden bravery and proud of him for finally standing up to Bakugo. It seemed that convincing him to distance himself from Bakugo might not be as difficult as they had thought. Izuku was still in a state of disbelief, expressing his astonishment at having punched Bakugo. His friends reassured him that he had done the right thing. After sharing a massive group hug, they set off to collect Eri and Kota before heading to the dorms. Later, Izuku made his way to Momo's room, where the girls had planned a movie night. They kept the movie a surprise, and Izuku was curious about what they would watch. Inko had decided to spend time with Eri and Kota, allowing them to enjoy their evening together. Upon entering the room, the girls welcomed him and announced that they would be watching Titanic. Izuku hesitated, unsure about the choice, but they assured him it would be enjoyable. As the movie played, Izuku found himself crying halfway through, and the group cuddled together, knowing that his emotional reaction would lead to a cozy night of comfort. It was a moment of excitement, even if it had a hint of mischief. Izuku, Achiko, and Momo visited an elegant restaurant, where Achiko was captivated by the ambience. The atmosphere thrilled her, and she found herself lost in the experience. Momo, noticing Achiko's delight, asked if she was enjoying herself, to which Achiko simply nodded in agreement. The trio engaged in light conversation, sharing stories about their lives. Momo expressed her sympathy for Achiko's family's financial struggles and offered to help them find business opportunities. Achiko appreciated the gesture and promised to consider it. Momo also understood Achiko's aspirations of becoming a hero, and after their meal, the two girls shared a warm kiss with Izuku, sealing the evening with affection. The next date involved Izuku, Yui, and Reiko, which turned out to be a rather awkward affair. None of them were particularly talkative, so they opted for a movie night featuring a horror film that was less intense than usual. Despite Izuku's bravado about handling scary movies, they were careful not to overwhelm him. Eventually, Yui mustered the courage to kiss him, marking a sweet moment in their outing. As the days went by, Izuku received a concerning message about Itsuka, who had been having a rough time. Momo immediately inquired if it was related to Monoma, and Izuku confirmed it was likely the case. Whenever Itsuka faced a tough day, she became particularly needy for cuddles, which was both endearing and challenging for Izuku and Momo, especially when they needed a break. When Itsuka finally arrived, she rushed to them, enveloping them in a tight embrace, her enlarged hands ensuring they stayed close. Despite feeling a bit trapped, Izuku and Momo found joy in the warmth of the moment, knowing that cuddles were a source of comfort. In another playful encounter, Mina, Toru, and Setsuna decided to engage in a light-hearted competition to see who could make Izuku blush the most with pick-up lines. Each girl took her turn, teasing Izuku and trying to elicit a reaction. As the playful banter continued, Izuku's face turned redder with each line, culminating in a moment where he couldn't help but blush profusely, leading to a humorous scene where the girls begged for his secrets. Amidst all the fun, Izuku felt a growing need to share his relationship status with his mother, Inko. He had delayed the conversation for too long, but with the support of his friends, he decided it was time to be honest. When they arrived home, Inko welcomed them warmly, and after some small talk, Izuku finally gathered the courage to introduce his girlfriends. However, the moment he mentioned them, Inko fainted in shock, leaving everyone in a state of surprise. After a lengthy wait, Inko eventually regained consciousness and processed the news. She burst into laughter, reminiscing about Izuku's father, Hisashi, who had been quite the charmer in his youth. The girls shared in the laughter, and Inko playfully asked when she could expect grandchildren, causing everyone to blush. Izuku quickly protested, emphasizing that they were not ready for that step yet. Inko, with a teasing smile, reminded him that it was her right as a mother to poke fun at him. Once the initial shock wore off, Inko turned her attention to the girls, her demeanor shifting to one of protective curiosity. She asked them about their intentions with her son, prompting a mix of nervousness and amusement among the group. As the evening continued, Mina and Toru cuddled with Izuku in his room, reflecting on how their relationships had blossomed. Mina recalled a gathering where the girls had openly admitted their feelings for Izuku, sparking the beginning of their unique bond. Each girl shared her admiration for Izuku, highlighting his bravery, intelligence, and kindness, which only deepened their affection for him. Since Eri and Kota began living with him, he had proven to be a wonderful father. Ibra was a pure soul, one that could not be tainted. Achiko admired his freckles and baby face, finding him incredibly cute. Mei noted how nice he was to everyone, while Toru commented on his muscular build, having accidentally walked into his room and even taken a picture. The group fell silent, with Toru defensively insisting it was an accident when questioned about her intrusion. Setsuna jokingly remarked that she was a nun, which only added to the playful banter. Ibra called Toru a foul temptress, and Toru, eager to share, asked if everyone wanted to see the picture. To her surprise, everyone except Ibra expressed interest. The sight of his body nearly caused everyone to faint, and even Ibra found herself looking, though she couldn't understand how it happened. Mina proposed a solution: they could share him. The suggestion left the group in shock, but Tsuyu, always blunt, agreed. Ibra protested, calling it sinful, while Achiko hesitated but ultimately joined in the agreement. Kyoka pointed out that he seemed too modest to want such an arrangement, and Achiko added that he would likely avoid making a choice to spare anyone's feelings. They all concluded that they might become professional heroes before he ever made a decision. Kyoka reluctantly agreed to the idea if everyone else was on board. Ibra continued to express her disapproval, labeling them all as sinful degenerates. Momo argued that it wasn't illegal, and if Izuku knew they were all okay with it, he would likely accept. Ibra finally conceded, stating she would participate in this unconventional relationship but would not engage in any inappropriate acts. Setsuna clarified that polygamy didn't have to be SXL, and Ibra shrugged off the comment. With everyone in agreement, Mina happily fell back asleep, reminiscing about the conversation. Later, Izuku, Achiko, and Tsuyu visited the mochi buffet again. Izuku expressed that sometimes it felt like he was dreaming, to which Achiko inquired why he felt that way. He explained that everything felt too good to be true, and Tsuyu nodded in understanding. Achiko asked how he felt at that moment, and he replied that he felt like the luckiest man in the world. Tsuyu affirmed that he deserved all the love, while Achiko reminded him not to sell himself short. Izuku acknowledged their affection and returned their feelings, receiving kisses from both. As the chapter came to a close, it reflected on how Izuku and his girls enjoyed cuddling. Achiko loved to cuddle anytime and anywhere, not minding whether she was the little or big spoon, as long as they were both happy. When she had nightmares, she would wake up and squeeze Izuku tightly, who would comfort her by rubbing her back and assuring her everything was okay. In turn, when Izuku had nightmares, she would wake him gently, whispering in his ear and squeezing his hand to calm him down. Tsuyu also cherished cuddling, preferring to be the big spoon so Izuku could listen to her heartbeat. During her nightmares, he would hold her and hum a lullaby, which always soothed her. When he had nightmares, she would wake him up, hug him tightly, and promise that the nightmares were not real. Mina loved to cuddle as well, preferring to be the big spoon to protect Izuku from nightmares. When she had nightmares, he would wake her and hold her, reassuring her that everything was all right. If he had nightmares, she would kiss him awake and tell him silly jokes to distract him. Toru enjoyed cuddling too, often taking the role of the big spoon but occasionally suching to the little spoon. When she had nightmares, Izuku would wake her with a hug, helping her calm down. If he had nightmares, she would gently rub his hair and wake him up before hugging him. Momo loved cuddling as well, preferring to hold Izuku close so he could hear her heartbeat. When she had nightmares, he would wake her up and they would talk about them. If he had nightmares, she would let him listen to her heartbeat and speak comforting words. Kyoka, though she didn't appear to be the cuddling type, enjoyed it just as much. She was indifferent about being the big or little spoon, depending on her mood. When she had nightmares, Izuku would hum a comforting song, and sometimes she would wake up and hug him. She would do the same for him when he had nightmares. Itsuka loved cuddling, often taking the big spoon position to hold Izuku close. When she had nightmares, he would hug and kiss her, and they would talk about it afterward. If he had nightmares, she would squeeze him and whisper comforting words in his ear. Setsuna adored cuddling, preferring to be the big spoon so she could hold Izuku. When she had nightmares, he would kiss her awake, and she would often feel scared and wrap her arms around him. If he had nightmares, she would hug him and sing a soft lullaby to calm him down or wake him up, and they would discuss the nightmare together. Ibra cherished cuddling as well, often being the little spoon to feel safe, though she didn't mind being the big spoon occasionally. When she had nightmares, Izuku would wake her up, and they would talk about them. If he had nightmares, she would wake him up, and they would hug and discuss it together. Yui, much like Kyoka, seemed unassuming but loved cuddling. She didn't have a preference for being the big or little spoon, as long as they were both comfortable. When she had nightmares, she would snuggle him tighter, and if he had nightmares, she would hold him and whisper comforting words. Reiko enjoyed cuddling as well, often taking the big spoon position to hold Izuku close. When she had nightmares, she would squeeze him tight to wake him up, and he would respond by kissing her awake. If he had nightmares, she would hold him and kiss him to help him feel better. Kaneko loved cuddling too, often taking the little spoon position since she was shorter than Izuku. Izuku allowed her to be the big spoon whenever she wanted. In moments of fear, when nightmares haunted her, he would wake her up, and they would embrace tightly. Conversely, when Izuku experienced his own nightmares, she would gently rouse him, using light-hearted puns to distract him and ease his mind. She cherished cuddling, whether as the big spoon or the little spoon, finding comfort in both positions. During her nightmares, she would pull the covers over them both until she felt secure, and Izuku's embrace always brought her solace. Similarly, when Izuku was troubled by nightmares, she would hold him close and shower him with affection. Mei also loved to cuddle, especially when she was compelled to sleep. She preferred being the big spoon, but she never complained about the arrangement. When nightmares struck her, she would seek refuge under Izuku's shirt, squeezing him tightly for comfort. In return, when Izuku faced his own fears at night, she would kiss him gently and hold him close. Nijire, too, was fond of cuddling, always wanting to be the big spoon without exception. When nightmares invaded her dreams, Izuku would calm her with soft words and gentle kisses, and she would wake up and cling to him tightly. If Izuku had nightmares, she would squeeze him until he awoke, ensuring he felt her warmth and support. In a different setting, Eri and Kota were playing with their toys in Tsuyu's room while she was in the bathroom. Kota confidently claimed to be their father's favorite, explaining that he had been saved by him. Eri quickly countered, asserting that she had also been saved. The two children argued passionately about who was truly the favorite, each insisting on their own position. Tsuyu emerged from the bathroom to find them in a heated dispute. They rushed to her, tears in their eyes, each claiming their status as daddy's favorite. Understanding that sibling rivalry was common, Tsuyu reminded them that their father loved them equally and that they should not fight over such matters. The siblings reconciled, embracing each other and putting their disagreement behind them. Later, the members of Class 1A returned home, exhausted, only to find Izuku, Eri, and Kota snuggled together under a blanket, peacefully asleep. Eri, however, had learned a new word that caused a stir. While playing with Kota, she accidentally bumped her hand against a desk and exclaimed a word that shocked everyone present. Momo quickly attended to her injury, explaining that it was a bad word. Eri felt remorseful and apologized, revealing that she had learned it from Bakugo. The group fell silent at the mention of Bakugo's name, and Eri and Kota clung to each other in fear. Momo expressed her disappointment but reassured Eri that her frustration was directed at Bakugo, not at her. They decided to confront him about it, and as they approached, Bakugo realized the trouble he was in. Bakugo had reluctantly agreed to watch Eri and Kota while Izuku and his girlfriends went on a date. He had taken them for a walk when trouble arose in the form of thugs demanding money. Bakugo, furious, defended the children and dispatched the attackers with ease. However, he regretted his choice of words when Eri repeated a curse, realizing he would have to face the consequences. As the reality of the situation dawned on him, Bakugo understood that he was in trouble. His friends, determined to hold him accountable, chased after him, and he fled, knowing he had to face the music. In another scene, Izuku sat on his bed, struggling to breathe as sobs racked his body. Eri and Kota were there, trying to comfort him. The evening had begun as a delightful date with his girlfriends but had taken a turn for the worse when they unexpectedly encountered old classmates, leading to a troubling situation. Thanks to his girlfriends being aware of his lack of a quirk, they were able to protect him from harm. They successfully intervened during an altercation, but one bully had to make a particularly hurtful remark about his mother, claiming that she should have run him over with her car. Izuku felt a surge of anger and frustration, knowing he should have stood up for himself, but the pain of the insults was overwhelming. The words about his mother cut deeper than any physical blow, even more than the taunts from Bakugo. Fortunately, Bakugo had a certain respect for Inko and would often defend Izuku from those who dared to speak ill of her. However, on this occasion, Bakugo was not present, leaving Izuku vulnerable to the bullying. He ran back to Yu, desperate to escape the situation, and made his way to his room, not wanting anyone to see him cry. He feared that if someone noticed his tears, they would ask what was wrong, and he would struggle to articulate his feelings, leading to even more tears. In his room, Eri and Kota embraced him, trying to comfort their father. Izuku felt guilty for breaking down in front of them. Just then, he heard the door open, and Ochiko entered, expressing concern for his well-being. Despite his attempts to put on a brave face and reassure them, they could see through his facade. Momo suggested that Eri and Kota spend some time with Uncle Ida, allowing Izuku to have a moment alone with them. Momo gently reminded him that he didn't have to be strong all the time. They all shared a comforting hug, and Achiko encouraged him to let his emotions out, assuring him that they were there for him. Finally, Izuku released the flood of tears he had been holding back. After a few minutes, once he had calmed down, he asked what had happened to the bullies. Setsuna informed him that they had confronted the bullies and given them a good beating, likely leaving them in the hospital. She reassured him that they wouldn't be bothering him anymore. The group sat together, cuddling for a while, and Izuku felt a sense of safety wash over him. Later, during class, Izuku and his girlfriends were working on an assignment when Midnight asked them to stay behind for a moment. Momo inquired about the reason for the meeting, and Midnight revealed that she was curious about their relationship. Momo asked if everything was all right, to which Midnight confirmed it was, but she wondered if there was room for one more in their group. They quickly understood what she meant, and Momo asked if she wanted to join them. Midnight admitted that it was indeed obvious. Achiko pointed out that Midnight would only ask such a question for a specific reason. After discussing it among themselves, they agreed to let her join and Midnight leaned down to kiss Izuku. Suddenly, Present Mike and Eraserhead burst in, interrupting the moment. Hizashi questioned what was happening, and Kayama defended herself, stating that there was no rule against such relationships and that she was impartial in grading. Aizawa insisted that it didn't make it right, while Hizashi threatened to report her to Nizu. In response, Kayama pulled out her phone, showing them something that caused them both to pale. Hizashi quickly suggested that it could remain their little secret, and Aizawa agreed that no harm had been done. Once they left, Momo asked what had just happened. Kayama revealed a picture of Hizashi and Aizawa snuggling, smiling at the surprised reactions of the others. She warned them not to let her catch them with any shipping fuel, as she knew the right media outlets to share it with. The group exchanged understanding glances while Izuku began planning a date with Midnight. As time went on, Izuku found himself on a date with Kayama at a restaurant, which turned out to be awkward due to the age difference and Midnight's playful flirting. She made suggestive comments that left him blushing, unaware that his other girlfriends were watching from a distance. Achiko and Momo exchanged glances, noting Kayama's boldness, while Ibra prepared a bucket of holy water, convinced that Kayama was a succubus sent to corrupt Izuku's purity. Despite the awkwardness, the date seemed to go well, with Izuku blushing throughout. His next date was with Melissa and May, where he found himself blushing again as they took his measurements for costume upgrades in a rather NTMT manner. He questioned the methods, but they insisted it was the most accurate way. Meanwhile, the girls gathered in Mina's room, discussing their suspicions that two pro-heroines, Ryukyu and Miruko, might have feelings for Izuku. They were surprised by this revelation, and as they speculated about the potential crushes, they considered how to encourage the heroines to confess their feelings. On another date, Izuku sat with Momo and Kyoka at a restaurant featuring a jazz band. They discussed the possibility of Miruko and Ryukyu having crushes on him, leaving Izuku in disbelief. Kyoka reminded him that the information came from Nijire, so it should be taken lightly. The group continued to ponder the implications of having pro-heroes admiring Izuku, marveling at how extraordinary he had become. Izuku felt overwhelmed by the revelations shared among his friends. He remembered how, as a younger boy, he would have been too shy to handle such a conversation. Momo, with a teasing grin, playfully suggested that he might have had a crush on someone back then. Izuku's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as he looked down, and Momo's surprise was evident when she realized he was serious. Kyoka, observing the exchange, expressed her astonishment at the situation, while Momo continued to marvel at the revelation. Despite the unexpected conversation, the group returned to their date, enjoying their meals and discussing their lives. As the chapter progressed, the narrative introduced new characters joining the group, including Fuyumi Todoroki, Kamyu Utsushimi, and Saiko Intelli. These additions were the last to join the growing circle of friends. Izuku had recently fallen ill after a sparring session with Todoroki, where he had accidentally been encased in ice. Once he thought he caught a severe cold. Eri and Kota took it upon themselves to care for him, but his girlfriends also showered him with affection, covering him with blankets and providing warm meals. Although he appreciated their concern, Izuku reassured them that a cold would not be the end of him. Meanwhile, Miruko was growing impatient as she waited for Izuku. Although she hadn't specified a meeting time, she expected him to arrive promptly. Her irritation manifested in her habit of thumping her foot. When Izuku finally arrived, he apologized for being late, explaining that he had been distracted by his girlfriend. Miruko's reaction hinted at a mix of jealousy and confusion, which did not go unnoticed by Achiko, who observed from a distance and noted the significance of Miruko's response. As the day continued, Achiko met up with her friends, and they shared their thoughts on Miruko's surprise. A notification from their group chat caught their attention, revealing an image of Miruko's shocked expression upon learning about Izuku's relationship status. The group found amusement in her reaction and began to speculate about the feelings of another friend, Ryukyu, towards Izuku. The narrative then shifted to a commentary on the trends in My Hero Academia fanfiction. The author expressed concern over the prevalence of stories that portrayed Izuku in negative lights, such as being abused or neglected. They noted a common theme among these stories: a dislike for the original character of Izuku, who was often depicted as a crybaby. The author argued that this portrayal led to a surge of edgy or villainous interpretations of Izuku, which they felt contributed to clichés in anime storytelling. The author appreciated Izuku's character for his selflessness and relatability, contrasting him with other typical anime protagonists. They acknowledged a divide in the fanbase regarding Izuku's relationship with Bakugo, emphasizing that while they did not personally favor Bakugo, they respected differing opinions on character dynamics. The commentary also touched on the portrayal of Achiko in fanfiction, questioning the motivations behind stories that depicted her as unfaithful. The author expressed frustration over the prevalence of abusive narratives involving Inko, Izuku's mother, and the overall trend of depicting Izuku as a victim. In conclusion, the narrative highlighted the author's longing for more balanced and respectful representations of characters in fanfiction, advocating for a return to the core qualities that made Izuku a beloved character in the first place. Izuku had always been told that he couldn't become a hero without a quirk, a notion that weighed heavily on him. Despite this, he remained steadfast in his belief that he was perfect just the way he was. This sentiment was not universally shared, as some criticized All Might for his harsh words. However, Izuku's friends supported him, and he found solace in their encouragement. One day, Miruko expressed her disbelief upon hearing something unexpected. Midnight, with a playful demeanor, confirmed the surprising news, leaving Miruko in shock. She turned to Izuku, curious about his situation. The atmosphere became awkward as Izuku tried to play it cool, unsure of how to respond to Miruko's probing questions. Midnight, sensing the tension, reminded Miruko that some things were private. After a moment of silence, Miruko's skepticism turned to admiration as she realized Izuku was not who she initially thought. Midnight praised Izuku for his kindness and strength, which only added to Miruko's newfound respect for him. Excited by this revelation, she invited Izuku to meet her the following day, leaving him feeling intimidated yet intrigued. As Izuku pondered this unexpected turn of events, Midnight offered him words of comfort, assuring him that the past was behind him and that he had a bright future ahead. The ongoing investigation into past troubles was progressing, and she hugged him, providing a sense of reassurance. The next day, Miruko took Izuku to an MMA fighting tournament, where they enjoyed the thrill of the matches from a VIP room. Izuku quickly learned that Miruko was fiercely passionate about the fights, often trash-talking the competitors. Their connection deepened, and Miruko surprised Izuku with a kiss, marking a significant moment in their budding relationship. Meanwhile, Achiko, Tsuyu, and Nijiire visited Ryukyu's agency to explore a theory about Nijiire's feelings for Izuku. As they settled in, Achiko texted Izuku, sharing sweet messages that highlighted their growing bond. Ryukyu, noticing the affection in Achiko's words, expressed her admiration for Izuku, which sparked a hint of jealousy among the others. They all sensed that Ryukyu might have feelings for Izuku as well. When they finally revealed their theory to Ryukyu, she took the news surprisingly well, though she initially doubted her appeal due to her age. Her friends quickly reassured her, reminding her that Izuku had admired her since childhood. After some encouragement, Ryukyu agreed to join their group, and that night, they shared the good news with Izuku, who began to prepare for a date with her. Their first date took place at a fancy restaurant, where they enjoyed steak and shared stories about their lives as heroes. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and they shared a kiss, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. Izuku continued to explore his connections with other friends, going on various dates that included sparring matches, cozy movie nights, and playful game sessions. Each encounter deepened his relationships, culminating in shared kisses that signified their growing affection for one another. As Izuku navigated these new dynamics, he found himself surrounded by a supportive group of friends who encouraged him to embrace his identity and pursue happiness, regardless of the challenges he faced. The bonds he formed with Miruko, Ryukyu, and others became a source of strength, reminding him that he was never alone on his journey to becoming a hero. Izuku found himself in the common room, where Itsuka and Momo approached him, curious about the commotion. Ibra informed them that Izuku was getting back at the flirt trio, having learned a powerful weapon from Kyoka and Ibra. Momo asked what kind of weapon it was, but before Kyoka could respond, Izuku made a rather awkward attempt at a pickup line, stuttering as he complimented the girls. The unexpected sweetness of his words caught everyone off guard, though his nervousness somewhat undermined the impact. Setsuna, blushing, remarked on Izuku's unexpected boldness but offered him a piece of advice about his stuttering. Achiko suggested that perhaps they should refrain from encouraging Izuku to use pickup lines, fearing he might become dangerously charming if he were more confident. The group collectively realized that if Izuku were to mstr his DLVRY, he could indeed be quite formidable. As the day progressed, Izuku found himself still in bed, surrounded by Achiko, Tsuyu, and Mina, who were cuddling him. When he attempted to get up for his morning workout, they playfully pulled him back, reminding him of his promise to spend the day with them. They settled back into sleep, enjoying the comfort of each other's presence. Later, while the boys were out, Izuku remained in the common room due to a headache. He was engaged in a video game with Achiko and Momo, who were both close to him when a loud voice interrupted their moment. Mandalay, Pixie Bob, and Ragdoll burst in, startling the group and catching Izuku in a vulnerable position. The sudden arrival led to a flurry of reactions as they processed the scene. Ryuko, one of the newcomers, expressed disbelief at the situation, while Shino demanded an explanation from Izuku. As they shared the story, the group took a moment to absorb the information. Eri, confused, wondered what was wrong with the adults, while Kota noted that they seemed to be deep in thought. As the playful banter continued, Ryuko expressed her frustration at not being included in the group, leading to a humorous exchange about age and attractiveness. The atmosphere shifted when Shino, determined to prove herself, unexpectedly kissed Izuku, leaving everyone in shock. The kiss lingered, and when it finally ended, Shino playfully challenged the others, showcasing her confidence. However, the light-hearted moment was interrupted by Ibra, who was visibly upset by Shino's actions. Tension filled the room as Ibra confronted Shino about her behavior, leading to a chaotic chase around the common room. The playful atmosphere quickly turned serious, with everyone realizing the gravity of the situation. As the day continued, the group decided to watch a movie, with Mina and Toru selecting a romantic film. Izuku, being sensitive, found himself moved by the story, shedding tears and drawing the attention of the girls, who comforted him while also teasing him with lines from the movie. Subsequent outings included a visit to a restaurant where Setsuna cleverly played on words, making Izuku blush with her playful banter. They also attended an opera based on a recommendation from one of Momo's butlers, agreeing that while it wasn't terrible, it could have been better. In another adventure, Izuku and his companions returned to the botanical gardens, where Setsuna discovered a shared interest in prehistoric plants. They encountered Dr. Pamela Isley, who ensured the plants thrived, and the group found common ground in their appreciation for nature. The narrative built up to a much-anticipated showdown, Uraraka vs. Bakugo, a rematch that had been brewing after Bakugo's earlier antics. Aizawa had finally agreed to let them settle their differences in a fair fight, setting the stage for an exciting confrontation. Achiko and Bakugo faced each other in the training arena, ready to begin their match. As the signal was given, they charged at one another. Bakugo initiated the attack with a powerful right hook, but Achiko skillfully blocked it and countered with a jab to his stomach. The impact caused Bakugo to stumble, and as he attempted to retaliate, Achiko deftly evaded his move and delivered a haymaker to the back of his head. Bakugo tried to grab her, but Achiko executed a sweep kick, knocking him to the ground. She seized the opportunity to unleash a series of punches, each fueled by her pent-up frustration. With each strike, she expressed her anger over Bakugo's past actions, landing a particularly forceful punch as she recalled how he had turned on their friend. Another punch followed, this time for the bullying he had inflicted. Achiko continued her assault, delivering 2 more punches, each with increasing intensity, as she recounted the damage he had caused. In a moment of sheer determination, she kicked him, expressing her outrage over his harsh words that had hurt their friend deeply. With one final punch, she made it clear that her grievances were not limited to just one incident. The referee, Aizawa, blew his whistle, signaling the end of the bout. He acknowledged that while there were no strict boundaries in a fight, Achiko's actions had crossed a line. Leaning in closer, he whispered that he would let it slide this time but advised her to maintain control in the future. After the match, Achiko left the arena, still processing the events. She encountered her classmates, who were eager to know what had happened. Relieved to hear that she had not been expelled, she explained that she had received a 3-day house arrest instead. Her friends expressed their astonishment at her boldness in confronting Bakugo and Achiko, admitted that she had surprised herself with her actions. As the days passed, Izuku found himself going on a series of dates. On one occasion, he joined Shino, Ryuko, and Tomoko at a restaurant they had reserved exclusively for themselves to avoid any unwanted attention. Ryuko took the opportunity to flirt with Izuku, causing him to blush. She would often accidentally drop items, bending over in a way that drew his gaze. Shino, noticing this, playfully reprimanded her for her antics. The playful banter continued as Tomoko squeezed Izuku's hand, teasing him about his dreams involving them. Despite the light-hearted teasing, Shino reminded them to be considerate, as they didn't want to embarrass him. The evening concluded with a sweet kiss from both girls. Izuku's next date involved Mina, Toru, and Setsuna, where they played games in Mina's room. However, he quickly realized they were engaging in kissing games, and he struggled to maintain his composure amidst their playful teasing. Later, Izuku attended a concert featuring Kyoka's parents, enjoying the performance alongside Kyoka and Momo. Afterward, they congratulated her parents and shared a kiss with Izuku, solidifying their bond. Another date saw Izuku and Itsuka snuggling in Kyoka's room, listening to music until they both fell asleep. Itsuka had to leave early the next morning but made sure to give Izuku a sweet kiss before departing. In a subsequent outing, Izuku found himself in the support department once more, being fitted by Mei and Melissa. They seemed to be more forward than before, leaving him uncertain about their intentions. Afterward, they shared a meal together, culminating in another kiss. Finally, Achiko, Melissa, and Mei managed to convince Mei to rest, and they all cuddled together in Izuku's room. As they enjoyed the quiet, they caught Mei trying to sneak off to her workshop early in the morning. Inko, Izuku's mother, welcomed the newest additions to his circle of friends and girlfriends when they came to visit. Initially surprised, she quickly adapted to the situation and offered them tea. She expressed her awareness of Izuku's childhood crushes on them, sharing how heroes had always lifted his spirits during tough times. The atmosphere shifted as she playfully warned them about the consequences of breaking his heart. Later, Izuku and his girlfriends relaxed in his room, watching hero shows on television. Their peaceful moment was interrupted when the new members rushed in, visibly shaken and recounting their frightening encounter with Inko, whom they jokingly referred to as a lion. They questioned whether she was secretly a pro-hero, leaving Izuku amused and bewildered by their reactions. Izuku found himself in a series of enjoyable dates with his classmates, each one filled with laughter and warmth. The first date involved Achiko, Mina, and Toru, where they visited a movie theater to watch a hero romance film. The movie turned out to be delightful, and they all shared a sweet moment, expressing their affection for him. Next, Izuku spent time with Momo and Itsuka, who were both class representatives. Itsuka had a particularly tough day, which led to comforting cuddles. When she arrived, tears in her eyes, Momo and Izuku welcomed her with open arms, understanding that she needed their support. They embraced her as she shared her feelings, creating a safe space for her to vent. On another occasion, Izuku took Momo, Itsuka, and Ibra to a restaurant with soothing music, helping Itsuka to relax after her challenging day. As the evening progressed, she began to feel better and held Izuku's hand, sharing a gentle kiss with him. Izuku's adventures continued with Mina, Toru, and Setsuna, who surprised him with a romantic movie night. To his relief, their surprise was more subdued than he had anticipated, and they enjoyed a cozy evening filled with kisses and cuddles. Another date brought him to the same restaurant with Nijire and Ryukyu, where they had the place to themselves. Nijire's excitement about their relationship was evident as she chatted animatedly, and they shared affectionate moments together. Izuku then took Achiko and Tsuyu to both a space museum and an aquarium, where they had a wonderful time. He even managed to convince the staff to let Tsuyu swim with the fish in a more private area, creating a memorable experience for all of them. Later, he spent an evening with Momo and Yui, watching movies in Momo's room. Despite Yui's quiet nature, they eventually settled on a historical drama that brought a smile to her face, indicating her enjoyment. Mina and Toru also had a cozy night with Izuku, where they simply cuddled in Mina's room. When morning came, Izuku was greeted with a flurry of affectionate kisses, making for a delightful start to the day. In a new chapter, Izuku, Eri, Kota, Melissa, and the girls from classes 1A and 1B decided to visit Dagoba Beach, a place significant to Izuku's past. They had to coax Mei out of her workshop to join them. Upon arrival, the beauty of the beach left everyone in awe. Kyoka expressed her disbelief that Izuku had cleaned the entire beach in just 10 months, to which he proudly confirmed the time it took. As they changed into their swimsuits, the girls couldn't help but blush at Izuku's physique, which was even more impressive in person than in photos. Mina, Toru, Setsuna, and Yui enjoyed the view, discreetly capturing moments on their cameras. Despite his embarrassment, Izuku tried to cover himself, but it was futile. Once they settled down, Momo remained under an umbrella, prompting Izuku to ask if she would join them. She requested help applying sunscreen to her back, which made him blush intensely. As he applied the lotion, Momo experienced a mix of sensations, realizing it was both a good and awkward idea. The situation escalated when other girls arrived, curious about the commotion. Momo attempted to clarify that Izuku was simply helping her with sunscreen, but her efforts were met with teasing. Soon, Izuku found himself giving massages to the girls, each one expressing their enjoyment. As the day continued, they all ventured into the water, ready to make more memories together. The beach trip was just one of many adventures that showcased the bonds forming between Izuku and his classmates, filled with laughter, support, and affection. Achiko let out a startled scream as she realized her top had come off. In a flurry of embarrassment, she rushed to Izuku, seeking to cover herself. Unbeknownst to her, in her haste, she accidentally pressed against him, causing him to blush deeply. After a brief search, they found her top, and she quickly put it back on before retreating to the sand to regain her composure. Meanwhile, Mina, Toru, Setsuna, and Ryuko couldn't resist teasing Izuku about the incident, but their playful banter was swiftly interrupted when Kyoka, Ibra, and Shino scolded them. The beach day continued on a lighter note, with everyone participating in a volleyball tournament. The teams were formed, with Izuku, Achiko, Mina, Toru, Momo, Itsuka, Ibra, Setsuna, Nijire, Midnight, and Tatsuma on one side, while Miruko, Yui, Reiko, Pony, Kyoka, Komori, Ryuko, and Tomoko made up the other. The remaining friends opted to sit out and watch, with Shino officiating the match. Izuku started the game with the first serve, managing to hit the ball over, but it was blocked by Rumi. She returned the ball, only for Itsuka to send it back over the net. Komori attempted to hit it back, but Setsuna succeeded in scoring the first point for Izuku's team as the ball landed in the sand. The score was now 1. Rumi served next, and Izuku barely managed to return it, but it accidentally hit Rumi in the face, resulting in a foul and a tied score of 1. Izuku apologized profusely, and Rumi, surprised, assured him it was fine. Since it was a foul, Rumi's team served again, and Kiyama managed to send the ball back over, but Reiko quickly retaliated, scoring another point for her team, bringing the score to 2-1 in favor of Rumi's team. Itsuka served next, and Yui couldn't reach it in time, tying the game again at 2. Pony then served, and Achiko successfully returned it, putting Izuku's team ahead at 3. Momo served afterward, but Kyoka returned it, allowing Mina to score again, making it 4. The game intensified as everyone put forth their best efforts, but ultimately, Izuku's team triumphed with a final score of 5. After the match, the group decided to cool off in the water, enjoying the rest of their day at the beach. In another adventure, Kota made his way to a castle where Princess Eri was held captive by a dragon. He easily defeated the dragon, which was actually Setsuna in disguise, and skirted Eri back home. Eri expressed her gratitude with a kiss on his cheek, and Kota, flustered, accepted her thanks. They were soon joined by Achiko and Izuku, who watched the playful scene unfold. The castle itself was made of cardboard, and Kota wielded a foam sword, fully immersed in their imaginative play. Later, the two children spent time with Grandma Inko, who was baking cookies while they enjoyed a Disney movie marathon. With everyone else occupied with internships, they cherished the time spent together. Inko reminisced about her son Izuku's childhood, feeling nostalgic yet proud of how far he had come, surrounded by friends who cared for him. Despite her warm feelings, she also harbored a protective instinct for her son, determined to keep him safe from anyone who might hurt him. Eri soon fell ill, and her family rallied around her, showering her with warmth and affection. They wrapped her in blankets, made her soup, and kept her company, though she felt increasingly hot and stuffy under all the layers. As they spent time together, they began brainstorming potential hero names. Kota suggested Hydro Boy, while Eri proudly declared her choice as Lady Deku. Kota teased her about the many variations of Deku in her suggestions, but Eri insisted it was because he was her favorite hero. She also proposed Fairy Queen, which Kota found surprisingly fitting. One night, Eri was jolted awake from a nightmare where a menacing figure returned to harm her loved ones. She dreamt of Izuku, Kota, Inko, and all her friends being in danger, which left her trembling with fear. When she awoke, she found Izuku, Kota, and her other guardians by her side, providing comfort. Eri expressed her fears about the bad man returning, and they all reassured her that they would protect her at all costs, promising that Overhaul would not get to her again. In another adventure, Eri and Kota were tasked with watching Kota's pet bunny, Yue-chan, while he helped Nizu with some animal removal at the training grounds. Eri adored petting the bunny, while Kota reminded her that they needed to feed it. Despite her reluctance to part with the cute creature, they managed to care for it well, and Yue-chan seemed to enjoy their company. During a family outing, Eri encountered a bully who hurled insults at Izuku. In a protective instinct, she began to punch the bully's knees, declaring her disapproval of his behavior. The bully dismissed her attempts to intimidate him, but Eri stood her ground, determined to defend her father. It was a chaotic day when Izuku walked into his classroom, only to find that his entire class had been transformed into children. Aizawa explained that they had been caught in a mishap during a support department experiment, and they would revert to their normal selves in a few days. Izuku felt overwhelmed, realizing he was now responsible for the class of kids. As the students began to play, Achiko eagerly suggested they engage in games. Izuku agreed, taking them outside where they ran around joyfully. Bakugo, however, lingered behind, confused about the situation. He questioned how Izuku had grown up while they remained children, expressing his frustration by hitting Izuku, though it didn't hurt. Tsuyu, sporting a tadpole tail, advised Bakugo to stop his antics. Izuku reassured Tsuyu, reminding her that Bakugo often spoke without thinking. This seemed to lift her spirits a bit. Then, Toru excitedly called for a game of hide and seek, which Izuku thought was a great idea. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to a more personal moment for Izuku as he comforted Eri, who was still upset after an encounter with a bully. He reassured her that she was not a freak but his beloved daughter, which made her feel a little better. Eri expressed concern for her mother, prompting Izuku to reflect on the protective nature he felt towards his family. Kota, Eri's older brother, was furious upon hearing what had happened. He was ready to confront the bully, but Izuku urged him to focus on taking care of Eri instead. Kota complied, pulling his sister into a comforting hug. As time passed, Izuku found himself on various dates with his classmates. Each outing was filled with laughter and bonding moments. On one occasion, he and his friends enjoyed a meal together, sharing stories that ranged from humorous to heartfelt. The girls were touched by Izuku's past, and they shared a kiss, solidifying their connection. However, things took a turn when they encountered Penelope, a girl from Izuku's past who had caused him emotional pain. The girls immediately sensed the tension and confronted her, expressing their disdain for her actions. Despite Izuku's longing to handle the situation peacefully, his friends stood firm, unwilling to let Penelope manipulate him again. In the end, Izuku's friends left Penelope incapacitated, believing they were protecting him. Izuku, however, felt conflicted about their actions, emphasizing that two wrongs do not make a right. He had moved on from the hurt she caused, finding solace in the love of his current friends. As they returned home, the girls showered Izuku with affection, reminding him of their unwavering support. It was clear that despite the challenges they faced, their bond only grew stronger. In a game of hide and seek, Izuku counted to 100 before beginning his search. His friend Bakugo, known for his competitive nature, did not even attempt to hide. Ojiro was the first to be found, easily spotted by Izuku. When asked why he hadn't tried to hide better, Ojiro simply stated that he didn't need to, as people already thought he was invisible. As the search continued, Izuku found Achiko perched in a tree, alongside Tsu. Mina, who had hidden in a bush, emerged in a panic after encountering a tarantula, crying out in fear. It was surprising to see her so timid. Kaminari and Mineta were hiding behind a hill, while Ida and Todoroki had taken refuge in a shed. Shuji and Kudo were found in a room, and Momo and Kyoko were also hiding up in a tree. The only one left unaccounted for was Toru, which caused a moment of panic among the group. Achiko exclaimed that they had found Hagakure's clothes, prompting a rush of concern as they realized how long it had taken to find her. After 3 hours of searching, they finally regrouped at the dorms for lunch. Eri and Kota were bewildered by the chaotic game. Bakugo's loud outburst startled them, and Eri remarked that Uncle Kachin had always been mean. Days passed, and the situation remained unchanged, leading Izuku to feel overwhelmed and exhausted from caring for everyone without sleep. Suddenly, he was interrupted by the arrival of the girls from Class 1B, along with Mei and Melissa. Itsuka and Ibara quickly covered Setsuna's mouth to prevent her from speaking out of turn. Izuku explained the situation, revealing that Bakugo had left Eri and Kota in his care, likely still upset about Nizu siding with him. Itsuka expressed her concern for Izuku's well-being, insisting he needed rest. When pressed for how long it had been since he last slept, he reluctantly admitted it had been 4 days. Without hesitation, Itsuka, Yui, and Reiko skirted him to his room, tucking him into bed and ensuring he would get some much-needed sleep. Meanwhile, Itsuka returned to the others, who were playing with the babies. She hoped Setsuna wouldn't develop a baby fever, as she had a fondness for children. They managed to settle down to watch movies, and while making popcorn, Yui informed Itsuka that Reiko was watching Izuku. Itsuka asked Yui to invite Reiko to join them, and soon the group was together for movie night. Afterward, they put the babies to bed and joined Eri and Kota in Izuku's room, where they cuddled with him. The next morning, Class 1A made plans to show their appreciation for Izuku's efforts in looking after Eri and Kota. The girls promised to thank their classmates from 1B, Mei, and Melissa for their help. Just then, Aizawa entered with a surprising sight, a baby version of Izuku. He explained that the support department had inadvertently turned him into a baby, and since Izuku had taken care of the others, it was now their turn to care for him. The boys felt nervous, while the girls were filled with excitement, eagerly discussing how many outfits they could dress him in and how many hugs they could give. Aizawa left them to manage on their own, leaving an awkward silence that was soon broken by Bakugo's bewildered exclamation. The girls shot him glares, recalling his past behavior. They wondered if baby Izuku remembered how he had been treated, and their concerns were confirmed when he squeaked and hid his face in his hands at their approach. The boys, except for Bakugo, thought he was just shy, but the girls were determined to protect him. Achiko approached baby Izuku gently, reassuring him that no one would hurt him. The girls sent Bakugo threatening looks, making it clear he was not welcome to cause any trouble. As lunchtime approached, the girls surrounded baby Izuku, feeding him and cooing over his cuteness, which caught the attention of the girls from Class 1B, who were nearly overwhelmed by the sight. After some time, both classes were feeding him, and they took him outside to play, gradually earning his trust. Achiko noticed him holding out flowers to her, and his innocent compliment made her heart flutter. The other girls felt a pang of jealousy but were also charmed by his sweetness. Later, they all gathered in the dorms, cuddling with baby Izuku while watching movies. Midnight arrived to check on them, bringing Eri and Kota, and was completely unprepared for the overwhelming cuteness of the green-haired baby waving at her. He asked her for an autograph like the little fanboy he was, leaving Eri and Kota in disbelief as they pinched themselves to confirm they weren't dreaming. Eri hugged baby Izuku, and the moment was so adorable that everyone felt their hearts swell. He excitedly talked about everyone's quirks, while Bakugo hesitated to approach, sensing the girl's protective stance. He backed off, and Eri whispered to Kota, wondering why the girls were angry at Uncle Kachin. As bedtime approached, the girls brought baby Izuku to Momo's room, where they all cuddled together. The following day, they dressed him in various outfits, and he enjoyed spending time with them, albeit confused about why they kept changing his clothes. Their routine continued with breakfast, trying to manage the cuteness overload, keeping Bakugo at bay, playing, cuddling, and watching movies. When Achiko decided to call Inko, she was met with disbelief upon hearing that her son had turned into a baby. Achiko nearly dropped her phone in shock, realizing Inko had not been informed. The girls exchanged worried glances, knowing that Aizawa would have a difficult conversation ahead. Inko promised to have a long talk with his teacher, and the girls sent silent prayers for Aizawa's well-being. 3 hours later, Inko arrived and embraced her son, who was overjoyed to see her. The adventure of caring for baby Izuku was just beginning. Izuku woke up, feeling the weight of sleep still clinging to him. It was Valentine's Day, and he had spent the entire night preparing a special surprise for his girlfriends. Just as he had finally drifted off, his alarm rang, pulling him back to reality. He had promised to treat them well, and he was determined to keep that promise. The only ones unable to join were Rikyu, Miruko, Midnight, Mandalay, Pixie Bob, and Ragdoll. Valentine's Day was always busy, and many heroes had to be on standby to manage the chaos caused by last-minute shoppers. Izuku felt bad for those who couldn't make it but vowed to make it up to them later. His plan was simple yet heartfelt. He had prepared homemade chocolates, a skill he learned from his mother. After that, he had made reservations at a restaurant, which cost him a significant amount of money. Thankfully, Nizu had helped him out financially, as he had earned quite a bit from his recent missions. Finally, he planned a trip to a nearby lake to stargaze together. As he stumbled out of bed, still groggy, he managed to get dressed just in time for a knock at his door. When he opened it, he was greeted by the blushing faces of his girlfriends. Realizing he had forgotten to put on a shirt, he quickly excused himself to grab one before leading them to the kitchen to share the chocolates he had made. They savored each bite, and their compliments made him smile. After enjoying the chocolates, they headed to the restaurant. As they looked at the menu, Izuku prepared to pay for the meal, but when they saw the bill, they exchanged glances and insisted on covering the cost instead. After their meal, they made their way to the lake, where they settled down to admire the stars above. The atmosphere was perfect, and Izuku felt content. He had sacrificed sleep to make the day special for them, and he was happy to see their smiles. As he yawned, Mina asked how little sleep he had gotten, and when he revealed he had only slept for 10 minutes, they were shocked. Despite their concern, he insisted that the day was not over yet. Eventually, exhaustion took its toll, and Izuku found himself resting his head in Achiko's lap while Momo covered him with a blanket. His girlfriends continued to gaze at the stars, enjoying the peaceful moment. However, the time came for them to return to Yue. They gently carried the still sleeping Izuku back and tucked him into bed. As they settled in around him, they exchanged soft kisses on his cheek, causing him to blush even in his sleep. Achiko voiced what they all felt, expressing that it had been the best day. Later, as Izuku woke up, he prepared for another day, but this time it was his birthday. Achiko and Tsuyu had plans to make it special, insisting he stay in bed a little longer. They had been planning this surprise for months, wanting to make up for all the birthdays he had missed. After a cozy morning, they led him outside to a private area where his girlfriends, along with Ida, Inko, Eri, and Kota, awaited him. Izuku noticed the absence of Bakugo and chose not to dwell on it. The celebrations began with warm hugs and gifts, followed by games and cake, which Eri and Kota particularly enjoyed. As the day wound down, Inko returned home, and the rest of them made their way back as well. That night, the girls snuggled up with Izuku in bed, and he fell asleep quickly, content after a fulfilling day. The atmosphere was light and joyful, and the bonds they shared only grew stronger as they celebrated together. All Might had trained Izuku for 10 months, and during that time, he had never suspected the true extent of what was happening at Aldra Junior High. He noticed that Izuku flinched at sudden movements and seemed afraid of Bakugo, but he attributed this behavior to Izuku's timid nature. All Might believed he was helping Izuku overcome his fears through their combat training, but he now realized how much he had misjudged the situation. He understood that Izuku was easily startled, but he had failed to grasp the full background of his struggles. All Might regretted not pushing for answers or asking Nizu to conduct a background check. The weight of this realization felt heavy, as if he had dealt himself a crushing blow. He recalled a conversation with Inko, Izuku's mother, who was equally shocked that her son had kept such distressing experiences to himself for so long. She felt guilty for not asking more questions about his well-being. All Might quickly learned where Izuku's propensity for tears originated, and if he didn't know any better, he might have believed they had quirks related to crying. In a tense meeting, All Might found himself sitting next to Inko, Mitsuki, Nizu, Eraserhead, Present Mike, Midnight, and Tsukachi as they interrogated the soon-to-be incarcerated principal. The principal attempted to portray Bakugo as the model student while desperately trying to maintain a facade of innocence. It was almost comical to see him struggle to keep his lies straight. Tsukachi, with his experience, could easily detect the falsehoods, and Nizu's keen insight revealed when someone was clearly exaggerating. The principal made absurd claims, stating that he had never witnessed any incidents and that he was always kind to everyone, unlike the quiet and peculiar Midoria, who supposedly caused all sorts of trouble. All Might had known the teachers long enough to recognize their temperaments. Nizu remained calm and collected, but his patience had limits. Present Mike was quick to lose his cool, while Aizawa, much like Nizu, was usually composed but could become fierce when provoked. Midnight was careful and calm, but both Eraserhead and Present Mike knew better than to anger her on a bad day. Tsukachi, due to his position, had to maintain his composure, but even he reached his breaking point at times. All Might had 5 stages of emotional response: patience, annoyance, raised voice, lost patience, and finally, all-out rage. Everyone knew to steer clear of him when he reached the 5th stage, including Gran Torino. Very few things could push Toshinori to that level, but the principal had managed to do just that. The principal made a derogatory remark about Inko, claiming she was the root of the problem and suggesting she should be stripped of her parenting rights. This was the final straw for All Might, who immediately transitioned to his 5th stage of rage. He transformed, his anger palpable as he confronted the principal. He declared that enough was enough, asserting that they were aware of the truth and that everything the principal had said was a lie. He defended Izuku, stating that he was not the aggressor, it was Bakugo who had been the instigator. All Might accused the principal of turning a blind eye and even encouraging behavior that contradicted the very essence of heroism. He expressed his outrage, stating that had he known about the situation sooner, the school would have been shut down long ago. Instead of nurturing heroes, the principal had been raising villains, which, by definition, made him complicit. In a display of his strength, All Might punched the wall beside the principal's face, a warning of the consequences to come. He reverted to his civilian form, Toshinori, and informed the principal that, fortunately for him, Izuku was a forgiving individual. As a result, The principal would only face a hefty prison sentence, along with everyone involved in the misconduct. Aizawa added that they were aware of the signs of edited footage and warned the principal not to attempt any cover-ups. It took several months before someone overheard a conversation and tried to destroy records that could implicate them, but thankfully, they were stopped before any serious evidence was lost. 5 months later, they managed to salvage the footage. All Might felt a sinking sensation in his stomach as he watched the recordings with the other teachers. The first clip showed a group of students beating Izuku to near unconsciousness while a teacher walked by, smiling as he ignored the incident. The second clip revealed Izuku being thrown down a flight of stairs. The third showed a girl with purple hair and her friends throwing stones at Izuku. The fourth clip was disturbing, but the fifth was the most shocking. Bakugo taunting Izuku, suggesting that if he wanted to be a hero so badly, he should pray for a quirk in his next life and take a leap off a building. It became abundantly clear that Aldra Junior High was highly discriminatory towards quirkless students. All Might felt a deep anger towards the society that valued strength over compassion. He knew he had not directly caused this, but the actions of heroes like himself and Endeavor had contributed to a culture that attacked the weak. Determined to change this narrative, All Might resolved to become a symbol that would dismantle the might makes right mentality. He wanted to be a symbol of equality, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire change. As he sat with Izuku in the courtroom, he witnessed the cynicism of those still trying to maintain the facade that Izuku was the villain. However, when Izuku finally broke down and revealed the truth about his experiences, including threats made against his mother and himself, All Might felt a surge of protectiveness. The threats were chilling, with messages that promised violence against both Izuku and Inko. This was a turning point, and All Might knew that the fight for justice was far from over. The atmosphere at UA High School shifted as November approached, leaving many students, particularly the boys, feeling uneasy. Izuku Midoriya noticed this change but couldn't quite grasp the reason behind it. Even his friend Ida seemed off, which puzzled him further. The thought that they might suspect him of being a traitor crossed his mind, but he dismissed it as unlikely. As the month progressed, Izuku received a notification in the group chat, which included his classmates. They exchanged messages about an age-old tradition that involved a challenge for the month. Some of the boys expressed their disbelief about participating, while others seemed determined to take it seriously. Izuku, feeling left out and confused, decided to go along with whatever was happening, even if he didn't fully understand it. He recalled a comment from Mineta about hiding a stash and not taking any chances, which made him wonder if it had something to do with avoiding girls for the month. He resolved to try, despite the uncertainty. The first few days passed without much incident, but he noticed his friends were more focused and distracted in class. When Achiko and Tsuyu invited him to go on a date, he quickly made an excuse about being busy with homework, which they accepted. As the days went by, the girls began to notice Izuku's odd behavior. They held a meeting to discuss their concerns. Momo pointed out that he had been acting strangely, and Achiko speculated that Bakugo might be bothering him again. However, Momo suggested that it might be something else entirely. Setsuna brought up the dreaded No Nut November, and the girls collectively realized that Izuku might be participating without even knowing what it entailed. They decided to invite him to a group chat to clarify the situation. When they asked him directly, Izuku hesitated but ultimately admitted that he was participating, despite not knowing the rules. The girls exchanged exasperated glances, recognizing that this was typical of him. They decided that he needed to face the consequences of his unintentional participation. In the following days, the girls grew increasingly flirty, sending him pictures in their hero suits, which made Izuku feel overwhelmed. As the days passed, the pictures became bolder, featuring them in bikinis or tight-fitting clothes. He attempted to limit his interactions through text to give himself time to think. One day, he received a text from one of the girls, asking if an outfit was too tight. This left him feeling flustered and betrayed. The next day, Setsuna took a bold step and tried to get closer to him, which only intensified his confusion. He found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, unsure of how to navigate the situation while trying to uphold the challenge he had unwittingly accepted. As November continued, Izuku realized that he was in over his head, struggling to balance his feelings and the expectations of his friends. The challenge had become more than just a test of restraint. It was a complex web of emotions and friendships that he had to navigate carefully. He decided to rush to his room, leaving Setsuna behind. As he entered and locked the door, he felt someone's arms wrap around him. He did not respond and gently placed her outside the door, which prompted her to express her frustration. Soon, the last day arrived and he waited in his room, determined not to fail after coming this far. Eventually, he decided to sleep. When he woke up, everyone was there. Setsuna reminded him that Momo could pick locks and informed him that it was past midnight on December 1st, congratulating him on making it. She then indicated that it was time for him to make up for his earlier actions. He noticed that Min and Achiko had barricaded the door, signaling that he was in for a long night. As the cold morning dawned, the students of UA found themselves in an unusual situation. A villain with a weather quirk had cast Japan in snow, unintentionally causing a continuous winter. While the heroes worked to capture him and reverse the effects, all of Japan experienced extreme cold. Power companies had to provide free electricity to prevent people from freezing, and supplies were flown in from other countries. Even other villains called a truce, as everyone just wanted to stay warm in their beds. At UA, the heaters struggled to keep up with the frigid temperatures, leading to a temporary vacation for the students. To conserve power and heat, Class 1B was moved into the dorms of Class 1A, and even Monoma did not complain. Izuku, along with the girls from both classes, including Mei, Melissa, and Nijire, cuddled in Momo's large bed, which was piled high with blankets. Eri and Kota joined them, and the much-needed warmth made the cold morning feel like a blessing in disguise. The girls snored softly, comforted by the bed and each other's warmth in the Arctic-like weather. Mina had to get up to use the bathroom but shrieked when she emerged from the blankets, quickly returning to their cozy nest. Tsuyu expressed her struggle to stay awake, while Itsuka and Setsuna both sought warmth. Momo snuggled tighter into Izuku, and despite the cold, they knew they had to get up for some hot chocolate. They dressed in sweatpants and flannel clothes to keep warm, as everyone else remained in their rooms. After preparing fresh cups of hot chocolate, they savored the heavenly warmth it provided. As they discussed the situation, Kyoka checked her phone for updates, only to find that they were likely in for another day of cold weather. Mina lamented the freezing conditions, while Ibra snuggled closer to Izuku and Achiko, trying to share body heat. Tsuyu almost succumbed to hibernation again. Momo acknowledged the unfortunate situation but encouraged everyone to make the best of it. Mina agreed, appreciating the non-stop cuddles, but expressed her discomfort about needing to go to the bathroom. Toru added that the heater sometimes malfunctioned, making things worse. As the group continued to complain, Achiko leaned her head on Izuku's shoulder, while Tsuyu rested her head on him as well, drifting off into a light sleep. Ibra wrapped her vines around the four of them, hoping to retain warmth. Eventually, it became too cold to stay out of bed any longer, and they returned to their cozy spot. When the heroes finally managed to clear the snow, the sun shone brightly for the first time in ages. With the weather finally warm, the girls, Izuku, Eri, and Kota ventured outside to play in the snow. They built snowmen together, while Kota joined Mina and Toru in a snowball fight against Setsuna, Pony, and Komori. Momo and Kyoka made snow angels, and the others enjoyed the sun's warmth, wearing sunglasses to shield their eyes. Although the Arctic weather had been challenging, the day turned out to be memorable. Inko was cleaning the apartment and dusting the shelves when she came across a picture of herself and Izuku, who was wearing an All Might onesie. They had always enjoyed playing together, but after he was registered as quirkless, their relationship had drifted apart. It broke her heart as she struggled to find the right words to say to him. When he finally got into UA, she found the strength to encourage him. Following the USJ incident, she panicked, fearing the worst, even though she had just seen him moments before. That was a mother's instinct, always worrying. During the sports festival, she witnessed Izuku grow stronger, but she also experienced panic attacks as she watched him hurt himself. The incident at the mall brought her to the brink of losing him, and she hoped it would never come that close again. Then came the summer camp incident, which added to her worries. Inko had been deeply concerned about her son, Izuku, especially after learning about the harsh treatment he had received from his previous teachers and peers at Aldera. The threats made against her and the principal's cruel words had shattered her heart. She had always wanted the best for Izuku, and when All Might assured her that he would take care of him, she felt relieved enough to allow him to continue at UA. However, the guilt of potentially sabotaging his dreams lingered in her mind. Inko reflected on the signs she had missed, realizing that her denial had blinded her to the reality of Izuku's suffering. She had brushed off his struggles, convincing herself that everything was fine, but deep down she knew she had ignored the truth. Despite Izuku's reassurances that it wasn't her fault, Inko couldn't shake the feeling of being a terrible mother. She resolved to make amends for her oversight. Meanwhile, at UA, Izuku, Achiko, and Momo were gathered in Izuku's room, brainstorming ideas for Mother's Day. They considered various options, from treating their mothers to a fancy restaurant to enjoying a picnic in an appealing park. Momo suggested a 5-star restaurant, but Achiko questioned their budget. Eventually, they settled on a picnic, inspired by Ibra's stories of a lovely meadow. As they planned, Toshinori walked alongside Kayama, discussing their own Mother's Day experiences. Toshinori revealed that both of his mother figures had passed away, which led to an awkward moment for Kayama. Despite the somber topic, Toshinori had plans for the day, and Kayama teased him about spending it with Inko. Toshinori blushed at the mention of her, clarifying that Inko was married and her husband worked abroad. Their conversation was interrupted by Toshinori's phone ringing, and he answered it to find Izuku on the line. Izuku shared their picnic plans, and Toshinori felt a mix of pride and worry about the upcoming conversation with Inko regarding One for All. Kayama expressed concern about how Inko might react, especially given her previous attempts to remove Izuku from UA. Back at the picnic site, Izuku felt a wave of anxiety as he prepared for the day. Achiko noticed his unease and offered him support, reminding him that they would make the day special for their mothers. As they set up, Izuku received a call from Inko, who was looking through old photos and expressing her love for him. However, Izuku sensed her lingering sadness about Aldera, which weighed heavily on his heart. His girlfriends noticed his troubled expression and encouraged him to talk to Inko about her feelings. They reassured him that she would understand, but Izuku was still apprehensive about upsetting her. He resolved to have that important conversation later that night. As the evening approached, the parents of Izuku's girlfriends arrived. Izuku remembered the mixed reactions from their families when they had shared their relationships. Inko, now surrounded by new friends, received compliments on raising such a kind son. She took pride in sharing baby pictures of Izuku, delighting the other mothers with his cuteness. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and chatter as everyone enjoyed each other's company, but Izuku's mind remained focused on the conversation he needed to have with Inko. He hoped that by addressing her feelings, they could both find peace and understanding. Toshinori and Izuku gathered their courage to speak with Inko, knowing it was time for her to learn about One for All. As they approached her, Izuku felt a mix of apprehension and determination, while Toshinori shared his own nervousness. They guided Inko away from the crowd to ensure privacy. Inko looked at them, curious about what they had to say. Izuku began to explain that he needed to share something important about his quirk. Inko's immediate concern was for her son's well-being, fearing he was in danger again. She became emotional, but Izuku urged her to listen until he finished. Calming herself, Inko nodded, allowing him to continue. Izuku revealed that his quirk was called One for All and that the story of how he obtained it was quite extraordinary. Inko listened intently, her expression shifting as she absorbed the information. Meanwhile, Achiko, Mina, Momo, Itsuka, and Ibra approached Kyoka, curious about what was happening. Kyoka informed them that Izuku was explaining his quirk to his mother, detailing the challenges he faced, including encounters with powerful villains. The group was anxious about how Inko would react, especially as they discussed the formidable foes Izuku had encountered. As the conversation unfolded, Inko's emotional state fluctuated. She was initially overwhelmed but eventually managed to regain her composure. However, her calm demeanor quickly turned to shock and anger when she learned that Toshinori had given Izuku a quirk that could cause him harm, especially one linked to a villain who had caused so much pain in their lives. Toshinori admitted that he had underestimated the physical toll the quirk would take on Izuku. Inko's anger intensified when she realized that the quirk was connected to the villain who had kidnapped her nephew and forced Toshinori into retirement. She sat in stunned silence, grappling with the weight of this revelation. After a few moments, Inko, still processing her feelings, reached for a frying pan, her frustration boiling over. Toshinori, sensing the danger, felt a rush of fear and began to flee from her, who was now chasing him, brandishing the pan. The chapter ended with a light-hearted note, celebrating the day with a cheerful acknowledgement of Mother's Day.